What's up, Dragon Brood? Today is our 10th installment of the Kaldheim preview reviews, and today is Thursday, January 14, and we have some interesting cards to cover today, and still a couple of questions that have been unanswered. However, before we go any further, please remember to like this video so more people see these previews, and then hit that subscribe button to help us reach our 10,000 subscribers by February 1st, because we are getting really close, under 200 now, and you can help me out with that. But in the meantime, let's talk about some Kaldheim. Alright, our first card is Skimfar, Avenger, 1 colorless, 1 black. Creature Elf Berserker, pretty cool. 3/1. Whenever another non-token elf or berserker you control dies, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. It's a 3/1 for 2 mana. That alone, I think, makes it at least reasonable. Obviously, everything can block it and kill it. However, we have seen things that give your elves bonuses, so there's a good chance it'll be 2 or 3 toughness. If that's the case, then this actually becomes a pretty reasonable card. But I don't mind the fact that it fits the mold of other black cards we've seen, where a creature dies, you lose life, you draw a card. Not that uncommon to have something like that in Standard. This could be a pretty good all-around card. Again, it works for non-token elves, so that's a big thing. But it could be a way to help you recover if your board gets swept. Just a way for you to sacrifice your own things to get some extra value. So I wouldn't turn my nose up at this card before we actually get to play with it. Terafumarole, colorless, red, snow sorcery, rare. Terafumarole deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Add colorless for each snow mana spent to cast this spell. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. Okay, so that's kind of a weird wording. So just so you understand, you spend 3 mana to cast this, you deal 4 damage to a creature. Creature or planeswalker. That already is pretty good. But if you spent snow mana, this is effectively a free spell. So let's say you spent 2 red and a colorless, but it was all snow mana. Well, you're going to have 3 colorless then to use for whatever you want for the rest of the turn. Granted, it's colorless mana, but still, if you have it on turn 3 and you kill something, then you get to play some artifact or whatever else if you're playing some control style deck. If you're playing it later in the game, well, let's say it's like turn 5. Like, you could kill a thing and still cast your 5 mana creature, assuming you have 2 other colored mana to go with whatever you need to cast or whatever. So this card's really good. Really good. This comes back to what we've been talking about on the other previews, which, by the way, if you haven't watched them, you should go watch them. But it's that snow is so good, and there's very little reason to not play Snowlands right now. In Search of Greatness, green, enchantment, rare. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may cast a permanent spell from your hand with mana cost equal to 1, plus the highest converted mana cost among other permanents you control, without paying that spell's mana cost. If you don't, scry 1. Alrighty then, there's a lot to address here. First off, this isn't the same as Fires of Invention. This is a card I did already see some people talking about, and it's not the same in the sense of there's no restriction under Fires of Invention. It's just like you can build with expensive spells and then you're always getting to play them, right? But here, it's harder to control. First off, it says other permanents. So if you say you didn't play anything on 1, you played a tap land or something, which won't be that uncommon. You play this on turn 2, well, you still can't go play a free spell yet, because this doesn't count. So at best, the thing you play on 3 allows you to play a free thing on 4, but then if your opponent removes the 3 on their turn, or even on your turn, I don't know, you're still back to playing normal Magic. So it does have upside, and the upside is real nice. But it's not guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination. So please do not get caught up in that you're always going to get the next most expensive thing, because that's just not what's going to happen. Now, is this card good? I do believe so. Will there be a deck for it? I do believe so. Will it be the most dominant thing in Standard like Fires of Invention? I do not believe so. Fearless Liberator, colorless and a red for a 2/1 Dwarf Berserker. There's a whole bunch of Berserkers. That could almost be a deck in and of itself if we build it right. Also, I believe the Kargan Intimidator... No, Kargan Intimidator was a warrior, not a berserker. Anyway, back on track. So this has Boast for 2 colorless and a red. Create a 2/1 red Dwarf Berserker token. And again, you just have to attack with the creature to trigger the Boast and then pay the cost. getting a token is actually pretty good. And you're getting a 2/1. So if you can play, say, two different creatures that also allow you to make tokens, I actually kind of like that against control matchups. The reason being is you don't have to dedicate anything else to the board, right? Let's say you have two different creatures that are attacking and you have 4 or 5 mana. Well, now you don't even play another creature out of your hand. You just attack, trigger one, make a token, trigger the other, make a token. So you're still building up your forces, dealing actual damage, and you're not really giving up anything. Like, I kind of like this. Now, it is a dwarf, so it may just go into dwarf themed decks and then just make you more dwarves, and that's awesome. So it probably has a home in a couple of different things, but it's just a quality little card. I'm appreciating the both things that have that type of ability. Taunt the Trolls, this one's called. 3 colorless and a red. Instant. Deal 3 damage to any target. If a creature's dealt damage this way, it gets +5/+0. I don't even, like, this card just amuses me, right? In the sense that it's a decent removal card. It's not great. I mean, you're playing 4 mana for 3, but it is an instant, so it's not irrelevant. And it does go to the dome. You know, it's a thing you're not getting on a lot of burn spells these days. So 3 damage to the face is relevant. But amusingly, if you have like a 4/4 or 5/5 or something and you just need to finish it, it's like a turbo giant growth for 4 mana. Like, give something +5. Not only that, it's an instant. So if your opponent chooses not to block the wrong creature or whatever, you just like give that +5, assuming it can survive the 3 damage. So it's actually kind of a versatile card. Will it find a home? I don't know. It depends on kind of what the giant decks probably end up looking like at the end of the day. I can't imagine regular red decks or Gruul decks, though possibly there is a red deck with some dragons that could maybe play this, but that might be about it. Okay, Ascendant Spirit. 1 blue for a 1/1. Snow creature spirits. Pay 2 snow mana. Ascendant Spirit becomes a spirit warrior with base power and toughness 2/3. You can pay 3 snow mana if it's already a warrior, put a flying counter on it, and it becomes a Spirit Warrior Angel, that's a 4/4. Then you can spend 4 snow mana. If it's an angel, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and it gains whenever this creature becomes or deals combat to a player, draw a card. Again, snow things with no downside. And this actually kind of plays similar to another creature we saw years ago that had split mana, red-white. Can kind of do the same thing. It becomes like up to an 8/8 or something, I think. So it's a bit different, but this does become a 4/4 flyer, then eventually becomes a 6/6 with flying and can draw cards. Does it even matter at that point? Yeah, probably a little bit, but not much. But this is actually a pretty decent card. Like, where it fits in, I don't know. There's possibly some spirit decks that I think you could play with it based on the amount of spirits we've seen so far. But I don't know if that's enough to justify building a deck with. But again, if you have the ability to play it, you might as well play Snowlands because there's no downside really. Just go for it. Alright, Usher the Fallen. 1 white, 2/1. Creature, spirit, warrior, boast. 1 colorless, 1 white. Creature, or create a 1/1 white human creature. Well, here we go again, right? Pay 2 mana, make a 1/1 human warrior. This thing, I kind of dig it, right? Like, this is going to go into a lot of decks. A lot of decks. Like, okay, one, it's a 2/1 for 1, so that's already solid, right? The aggressive decks want something like this. We've seen white aggro decks already coming around, playing a whole variety of cards. This fits in there. It makes a creature token when you attack, which is good. So it's a way to spend mana on turn 2, even if you don't have a 2-drop, which is great. This goes into stuff like Winota decks, right? It's a quality turn 1 creature that can attack effectively. It can make a second token. Granted, the second token doesn't trigger Winota when it comes out, but it is a thing you can do and not lose anything in that exchange. But it fits in a few places. I think we will see this card. Runed Crown, 3 colorless. Artifact equipment. When Rune Crown enters the battlefield, you may search your library, hand, or graveyard for a rune card, put it onto the battlefield attached to Runed Crown. You may search your library. Oh, if you search your library this way, shuffle it. Equip creature gets +1/+1. Equip 2. So, not the most exciting equip card. However, we have no effing idea what runes are, right? We've seen this card that references it. Actually, well, there's 2 things. We also don't know what's going on with Phyrexians, right? We saw Vorinclex and then nothing. So are they all here? Is he the only one here? Or it the only one here? I don't know what Vorinclex is, male or female or not. Like, but Vorinclex, are they the only ones here? You know, are what, like runes? Do they obviously they go on 2 cards? So if you have a rune on a thing, it probably adds a bonus. But like we can only infer. So a card like this, sadly, we can't really gauge it until I see what like I don't know. Let's assume there's 6 or 8, maybe 10 different runes or some such. Then we can kind of guess. But for now, till we know how good runes are, this is pretty mediocre. Probably even bad. I would just say it's bad, and depending on the rune, probably moves to mediocre. Faceless Haven. I don't know if we covered this card before, but I feel like it's been previewed a bit because I feel like I've already seen this artwork. But if I did, I apologize. But regardless, Faceless Haven, tap for 1 colorless, so totally legit normal land there. 3 snow mana, Faceless Haven becomes a 4/3 creature with vigilance, and all creature types until in the turn still on. Yeah, card's just good. I mean, literally just good. I could even see decks that could forego playing Crawling Barrens to play this and just play a bunch of Snowlands. Right? It's cheaper to activate. It's vigilance, so you can attack and still have the mana afterwards. Like, it's got so much going for it. Like this could be a real valuable player in standard, for sure. Maybe even in older formats where you can play other snow permanents or snowlands as well. But something to think about. We have several lands to talk about, so I'm gonna try to hit those pretty quickly. But we have Gates of Isfel. Enters the battlefield tap for white. You could pay 2, 1 white, 2 blue, tap it, sacrifice it, gain 2 life, draw 2 cards. This is the perfect type of card for control decks. This is the perfect type of thing they're looking for. Late in the game, instant speed, gain some life, draw some cards. Probably the only place this gets played, but they're going to like it when they play it. Skimfar Elder Hall. Land, tapped, or enters the battlefield tapped for a green. 2 colorless, black, black, green. I guess we see a pattern here. Tap, sacrifice it. Up to 1 target creature you don't control gets -2/-2 until end of turn. Create 2 1/1 green elf warrior tokens. Activates ability only anytime you can play a sorcery. So this one does have the restriction of only being played as a sorcery, which is a big deal because you can't use it during combat or anything, which would be really nice. But even then, you do get to kill something and make 2 elf tokens. The only gripe I have is I would rather it be played as an instant, just so you have a little bit of leverage in those longer control matchups after a board sweeper or some such. But otherwise, it's actually still pretty playable. Now, you know, the number of tap lands you're playing could really affect whether this goes into your deck, because you're probably going to be playing it in something that's relatively aggressive and trying to take advantage of all those elves and bonuses. But this isn't a terrible card. I don't think you play more than like 2 in a deck, but it's pretty usable. Axguard Armory. Land. Enters the battlefield tapped. Tap for white. Colorless, red, red, white. Tap, sacrifice Axguard Armory, search your library for an aura card or an equipment card. Reveal them, put it in your hand, then shuffle library. This is fine, unless you just have like a very specific equipment you need to get, or I guess maybe you could search for like, I don't know, a banishing light or something. It does let you search at instant speed, so you can do it at the end of your opponent's turn, and this does have 1 lower activation than the other 2 we just looked at. So it has some things going for it. I don't know, this could be playable in the right deck. I also just realized we have 2 lands that produce white in this cycle, which is a little bit strange. But anyway, Notvold Slumber Mound, which is a crazy name. Land, it enters battlefield taps for red. 3 colorless, this is the most expensive of them so far. Red, green, green. Tap, sacrifice the Slumber Mound, destroy target land, create a 4/4 green troll warrior token with trample. Okay, so this I like, right? You get to kill a land, so if there's something problematic, say that thing we just looked at that makes a 4/3, or you're talking about a Crawling Barrens, sure, get rid of those. And you get to make a 4/4 on their turn even if you want to, and then do your business on your turn. Really expensive cost though. You got to spend 6 mana to get it, so you really need 7 because you need this and another 6. But it could still be worth it just for 1 or 2 copies. Bredegaard's Stronghold, not even strong. Oh, it is Stronghold. Yeah, Bredegaard's Stronghold. There you go. It's same thing. Enters the battlefield taps for green. This has the cheapest cost by far. Green, white, white. Tap. Sacrifice it, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures you control. They gain vigilance and lifelink until end of turn. Can only be activated as a sorcery. The sorcery part's very disappointing on this one. +1/+1 on 2 different creatures. Getting Vigilance and Lifelink is pretty strong, though. I think just because it's so cheap to activate, there's a good chance you're going to get to play this in some decks. And again, the Vigilance is relevant, very relevant, and the lifelink could really swing situations depending on what you're playing against, or even what the theme of the deck is. I mean, if you're already playing something that needs lifelink, or in the event you're playing stuff that wants +1/+1 counters, right? This is the quality land for that too. Just how many you can play, that's the question I'd be asking myself. But I think this one's definitely playable. And why not? We'll talk about the blue one too. Carfell Port. Enters tap, taps for blue. 3 colorless, blue, black, black. So on the higher end of what we've seen. Sacrifice, mill 4 cards, then return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This could be really big. Any type of self-mill deck. The deck's playing stuff like Garuda, anything like that that's just going to have some big studs in the graveyard. This is pretty, again, you need 7 mana, so, you know, it's not nothing. But as far as a late game play, after all your stuff's been dealt with, or your opponent's milled some stuff into your yard, I don't hate this. I don't hate it. Again, it's not super powerful. It's probably like a one of and the decks that want it, but it's not bad. And then a couple more cards to talk about today that if I didn't talk about them, people would probably murder me in the comments. So, COSIMA God of the Voyage, legendary creature, God, 2 colorless, and a blue for a 2/4. Okay, doesn't sound exciting so far. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile COSIMA. Alright. If you do, it gains whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control. If COSIMA is exiled, you may put a Voyage counter on it. If you don't, then you get to return COSIMA to the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it and draw X cards, where X is the number of Voyage counters on it. That is a little bit of a mess. Alright, so what it's saying, it sounds like, is you can, during your upkeep, you choose whether you want COSIMA to be in play or out of play. If COSIMA is out of play, then when you play a land, you add a Voyage counter to COSIMA. Then you get your choice. I'm trying to figure if I'm even reading this right. Alright, yeah. You may put a Voyage counter on it, and then if you play a land and don't put a counter on COSIMA, then it comes into play and then you draw cards equal to the number of counters. That's a weird, like it's kind of the only way to word it so it makes sense when you think about it, but it's very weirdly worded. But basically, you get to choose if you want every other turn or whenever you choose to play lands or not to bring COSIMA back into play and draw cards. So it's a perpetual card drawing thing. You can kind of protect it on turns you plan to sweep the board, which is kind of cool. I feel like this is a decent card, but it feels like you have to work really hard to get the most out of it. So I have no idea what to make of this. I'm going to let people who are more control oriented and enjoy that type of stuff a little better make a true assessment. I would not be surprised if I saw it, but for the long-term value it could provide, especially if you're talking about a really slow plotting like Yorion deck or something else that's like mono blue, tapping your stuff down, it could be really good in the long run. So I would probably be trying to kill this on site. But it does have another half here. Whenever, which is the Omen Keel, which I don't know is like a big Kraken type thing, but it says vehicle. Legendary artifact vehicle. It's a blue and a colorless for a 3/3. Whenever a vehicle you control deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles that many cards from the top of their library, and you may play lands from among those cards as long as they remain exiled. This just feels okay, right? If I'm playing some type of aggro deck or very aggressive deck in some way, it's probably okay. It's 2 mana, 3/3. I can attack with it pretty easily. It's a vehicle. I might get to just play some extra lands so I don't miss a land drop. That's pretty cool. So that part feels to me a little more exciting than the legendary creature portion. Mostly because I think the second half can actually go into more decks. But you do just get the creature as a bonus, right? Like you may not even be caring about the creature, but when the situation arises, it's not too bad. So yeah, this card, solid. I don't know the home for it at all yet, but somebody will figure it out. Okay, y'all. I'm gonna take off my shoes for a second and celebrate with the spin. I'll be damned if we didn't get something that actually affects snow things. Hopefully there's more than just this, but hey. So we have Redane, God of Justice, 2 colorless and a white for a 2/3. Legendary creature God. Flying, Vigilance. So not a bad card anyway, just for 3 mana. 2/3 Flying Vigilance for 3 mana. Snowlands, an opponent controls, enter the battlefield tapped, so that's cool. Slows your opponent's lands down a bit. Your opponents have to pay 2 more to cast non-creature spells with converted mana cost 4 or more. So this is kind of similar to Gaddock Teague, kind of punishing the cards that cost 4 or more if they're non-creatures. But it makes things that cost 4, say like Shatter the Sky, cost 6. That's pretty damn good. Like, this card will see play, I can tell you that. Like, there's not much else to say. Like, this is one of the few, or the only thing I think of we've seen so far that punishes snow permanents of any kind, and gives you a bonus that's just already good. Especially if you're playing an aggro deck, angel deck, any of that type of stuff where you don't want your board swept. Like, or even if just spot removal, right? Some of that's on the more expensive side, say like Hagra Maulings and things like that, are going to end up costing a lot more. So, yeah, this is good. And the second part is a reasonable artifact. Costs 3 colorless and a white, so a bit slower. When a source an opponent controls deals damage to you or a permanent you control, it deals -1 damage instead. So basically makes all your opponent's stuff do 1 less, which is awesome. So it doesn't matter. It sounds like, let's see, opponent control deals damage. So it doesn't matter if it's a creature, it doesn't matter if it's a spell, whatever, it just deals 1 less. As long as it's dealing damage to you or a thing you control. Great. Then it has the bonus of whenever you or a permanent you control is a target of spell or ability, your opponents have to pay additional 1 or it's countered. Yeah, like both sides of this card are totally legit. This is one of the better gods we've seen in the set. And it punishes snow permanent. This might be my Bay from the set. I mean, this card, it's doing a lot. It's doing a lot. It makes up a lot of ground. So, yeah, big fan. Alright everyone, I think that's going to do it for today. We still have no idea where the rest of the Phyrexians are, or how many there are, or what Vorinclex's whole idea is here. Because though there was supposed to be a bunch of metal, we haven't seen all that much metal stuff. But anyway, I get it. It's part of the theme. Whatever. But I'm curious where those are. And we still don't know about runes. We now have seen a card that references runes, but we have no idea what those are. So I'm assuming those are coming in the next 48 hours? I don't know. It's got to be soon. So hopefully we'll start seeing those and we can start piecing together the rest of this whole story around the set and what we can do with the cards. Also, that leads me to the other thing. As a reminder, we're going to be doing 2 streams, one on YouTube, one on Twitch. I'm going to figure out a day soon, I promise, but probably over the weekend. So everybody can ask questions about any of the cards they want, talk about possible deck ideas, anything like that. And then once the full set is out, I'll no longer be doing my constructed standard videos of the day. I'll be putting out multiple videos a day, little 5-minute videos probably about different decks that you can play using cards from Kaldheim. So you can keep an eye out for those as well. And finally, if you haven't, please remember to like this video so we can get it in front of more people. And then hit that subscribe button and be part of the 10,000 subscribers, because we're almost there and you can be one of them. But that's all I have for you for now. We will see you next time.